It is worth mentioning, you can't have a conversation about how Arsenal can hurt Liverpool, and indeed hurt any team, without talking about the set pieces, Josh, because it's what they do, really. They're really, really good at it.
Stoke.
Absolutely. And it isn't just like corners, it's free kicks, it's long throw-ins. They have the set piece coach, he's got his mural, and listen, nobody scores more goals on some set pieces in the Premier League than Arsenal, so you have to be wary of it. Liverpool at the weekend concedes some set play goals or second phases of set pieces. So I'm going to bring the first graphic up that you asked me to bring up, Josh. This one's like the throw-in that Newcastle ultimately end up scoring from. Obviously the ball is cleared, and then obviously it comes back in a second phase. So what is it from this one that you're most interested in?
This is why it's so relevant at the moment, because it's a title decider, if you want. We're facing Arsenal at Anfield, so you got to think to yourself, how might they win the game? And given their strength from set pieces, they're arguably like one of the best set piece sides we've ever seen in the Premier League. And on top of that, Liverpool have just conceded twice from set piece dead ball situations. So this is the first one that I've got up. And there's nothing specifically to point out. It's just like Liverpool conceded from this literally a few days ago, and it's just a long throw into the box. You know, a lot of teams are doing this lately. Kirkes, you can see him at the back stick there, ends up conceding with like a weird piggyback kind of vibe. Not quite sure what he's doing, but Liverpool conceded from that.
It's mad though, just because if I look at that, I'm fine. Like, there's no real issues there. Everyone's marking someone. Liverpool have stuck Van Dijk on the big centre half at the back. They've learned their lessons of maybe the League Cup final. If you look towards the back, I know it's not exactly Dan Burn, but it's Shah, isn't it, number 5? They've got Virgil van Dijk just making sure he doesn't get in. They've done the homework there. It was more the second phase of play. Someone makes an individual mistake, and that would be a worry, because if you fall asleep against Arsenal and you don't attack the ball, or you let a ball bounce, I can promise now they'll have someone there to put it in the back of the net. Yeah,
that's it. It feels like Arsenal will do something probably more creative than Newcastle did.
Web it towards Dan Burn.
Exactly. And that's the problem. If they do that, are Liverpool equipped to cope? Do Liverpool have the aerial strength to cope? You know, it remains to be seen. But we've got a few more, haven't we? A few more examples.
Yeah, 1 second. There we go. So we've got on here, this is the goal that Liverpool conceded in the 87th, 88th minute, really, and this is where the equaliser, Osula ended up getting in. That line is so high, Josh, and if you look at the state of that line as that ball is kicked, I wouldn't exactly say it's straight. You know what I mean?
I've literally pressed freeze as the ball is kicked to illustrate that. Literally 2 seconds ago it was straight, but once he kicks the ball, that's usually what happens.
And it's chaos.
It is chaos, yeah. It's very high, as you say. Earlier in the game, it was much lower, which we're going to show in a sec. Again, that adds to the kind of like almost disorganisation maybe around these kind of withdrawn free kicks, where they're obviously not going to shoot, but they're kind of intense on putting the ball in a dangerous area. Liverpool are defending it different ways, literally in the same game. A little bit of a red flag for me, that.
So I'm going to bring the next one up earlier. Sorry, it's this one. It's actually later on in the game. This one, as Liverpool go way deeper. The free kick's in a similar-ish area of the pitch, obviously a bit more wide, that Nick Pope goes and takes. And Liverpool defended this one on the edge of their own box. In a way, I'm glad, because they scored off the last one. So maybe someone's just gone, you know what, fuck this. Like, I'm going to get us back there. I feel, going back to that first one, though, you mentioned before about why Liverpool are so high. And they're never that high. Liverpool play a high line, but never that high. I think they're really worried about Dan Burn and this record that Newcastle against set pieces, and they scored off a throw-in and they've had loads of corners, and it's kind of got in our head a little bit, Josh, and that's a worry for me, in that Arsenal is the exact same. Anytime Arsenal get a set piece or a free kick or a corner, I'll be honest, and maybe you shouldn't, I'm always quite concerned. Arsenal fans, they have a song about set pieces, like they know what's going on, the whole world, and my worry is, if basically Dan Burn being a giant can get in your head and make you defend 20 yards, 30 yards further up the pitch than maybe you want to. Surely playing against the likes of Gabriel and against Saliba and Timber at the back and all the things that Arsenal do around the set plays with some really good delivery as well. My concern is Liverpool get in their own heads a little bit and get caught in between two stores, exactly like they did against Newcastle.
Yeah, and from an Arsenal perspective, if you're Nicolas Jova and you're creating these bespoke set-piece designs specifically for Liverpool, you're looking at that evidence and thinking to yourself, like, right, they're not... It would suggest to me that we're not entirely confident in what we're doing. The fact that in the middle of a game you can adapt like that and go from super deep to super high. Why exactly did we do that? Maybe there was logic in it. Maybe it makes it trickier for Arsenal to predict what Liverpool are going to do. So maybe it makes it harder from a design perspective. If you're designing a set piece, you don't know if Liverpool are going to be high or deep or whatever. But it's the kind of thing that, from my perspective as a Liverpool fan, makes me wobble a little bit, because you just want to see consistency in the approach, and the fact that we've changed it in the middle of a game suggests that we're unsure, which is not a good place to be.
Absolutely. The next thing I would say, though, counter, and we'll look at Arsenal in a moment and maybe the mad things that they do, is that in theory, if you look at how well Liverpool defended at times against Newcastle, they did defend a lot of set plays quite well. Virgil van Dijk got his head to so many. I looked at like 13 clearances Virgil van Dijk made in that game. A lot of those came from long balls. That's all Newcastle eventually, when they were down to 10, that was their game plan. Van Dijk seemed dominant in those areas. He was doing fantastic. But ultimately they still scored 2 goals, and it was when the ball wasn't near Virgil. And if you're Jovic and you're designing a set piece, one of your things is going to be, how do we get away from Virgil?
Exactly,
how can we keep the ball away from Virgil van Dijk? Because if you do, you've got, if history shows, in the last game especially, like you might have half a chance of getting something here. If you put it anywhere near Alisson or anywhere near Virgil van Dijk, they're probably going to deal with it. Alisson dealt with one, I think Kieran Trippier has a score off one of those corners, and Alisson deals with that so well. I go back to Virgil being so good. You'd imagine there's, at Arsenal's training ground this week, when they finish playing You'll Never Walk Alone on the speakers and pickpocketing each other and playing with light bulbs, at some point someone there is designing a set piece that tries to maybe isolate Virgil van Dijk or move them out of where they want the ball to go, and that is a little bit of a worry for me.
Yeah, well, that's the answer of designing a set piece. It is about like exploiting the opposition weakness and ideally masking their strength, and our strength without question is Van Dijk. So keep the ball away from him. How do you do that? Do you block him? I think there's been a bit more refereeing focus on that so far this season, so hopefully they're on their toes with that. I think the alternative would be like maybe targeting the near post or targeting the far post. I think Van Dijk tends to operate in the middle, doesn't he? To obviously just head everything away. So there's different ways of doing it. It'd be interesting to see how they do it, though, because I think it's common sense, isn't it? You're inclined to think that Nicolas Jova, when he's sitting down to do this, literally priority number 1 will be keep the ball away from Virgil. So it's going to be curious to see how they do it. Like, yeah,
they have loads of routines, Arsenal. We've got an example of one here. This is the goal against Leeds, the first goal. I mean, it's a bit of a scruffy goal in the end, isn't it, from a Leeds perspective? But they do the thing where they have 4 men behind the back post. Leeds don't go and mark them. Leeds stay zonal. What they do, though, they're clever. They keep Gabriel centrally, don't they? So you're also worried about him, because Gabriel's often the man who they aim for. This one ends up with Timber at the back post getting himself a goal, Josh. Yeah. And he has become more of a threat for them. He's another big body. They had the goal against Manchester United, which is ultimately, I mean, it's a goalkeeper error that Calafiori pokes in. But the very, very basics of Arsenal is they have got loads of big players. Like their fullbacks are Groks. The centre halves are big lads. Declan Rice probably taking the corner, but if he's not, he's a big lad. Zubimendi isn't exactly small, and then on the edge of the box they leave usually their wingers to tidy up all the mess. In this example, for example, it's Saka. He won't be there at the weekend. But if you're Liverpool looking at that, my first thought is I would struggle not to know where to put Virgil van Dijk. My guess would be he would be in front of the goalkeeper there.
Yeah.
But then I'm worried about Martinelli. Sorry, I'm worried about Gabriel, not Martinelli. I'm worried about Gabriel one-on-one with effectively a midfield blocker. You'd expect him to win that battle. And all those lads running from behind him and you don't know where the ball's going to go. That would be a slight concern. I'm not sure how I would go about defending that one, other than maybe go man-to-man. But man-to-man's designed to then... They are block designed for it. You know what I mean? It's a difficult puzzle to try and figure out.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, they've got the absolute basics there, as you say. They've got a top delivery when it comes to Rice, and they've got a load of units in there. Like their back 4, I think, will be Calafiori, Saliba, Gabriel, and Ben White, I think, will probably play because he starts the first game at Old Trafford.
He had a bit of an injury, but it might be Timber. But same thing, he's still good.
Timber's also a centre-half, really. I mean, certainly was for Ajax. Yeah. So, ultimately, they're going to field 4 centre-halves, kind of guaranteed. Then you've got, as you say, the units in the middle of the park. So, that's just a problem to deal with. And then every set piece that they do, really, they do that, which we've shown on the Viz, where they kind of, I've said this before with Chris, but like, generally speaking, when you're defending any set piece, the idea is, and you taught this as a kid, get yourself in a position where you can see the ball and the man, right? That's just like a basic that every player's taught. But Arsenal kind of make that impossible. Just a really basic little switch up where all of their players, as the kick's taken, start behind the ball, which means if you're a defender, you have to choose, do I look at the man or do I look at the ball? Obviously, they want to choose the ball because the men are literally at the back post, and they only actually take up their positions right at the last second. So they're giving the opposition defenders no time to like get the bearings and like that. So it is very effective. It's very sensible. I think Liverpool have generally dealt with Arsenal corners okay, but the wide free kicks less so. I think we conceded one last season, didn't we? Marino, yeah. It's that, I think that's my worry, that the kind of free kicks that they might get in like places where Trent would typically cross, somewhere like that. I think that's what I'm concerned about. Like,
it's worth mentioning as well, one of the reasons they're so good at set pieces is because delivery is ridiculous. Like, whoever, I know Saka's not playing, his is really good. Declan Rice's corners and free kicks are unbelievable. He's the one who set that Marino one up, like you said.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's where you go back to your defending questions of like, surely there's got to be a game plan of you've got to be careful against free kicks. There's certain teams you just don't want to foul. Certain teams you're happy to go, foul them, we'll take it. I was screaming the other day, for example, going, Conor Bradley, foul him. It's a good foul to give away. We're going to get counter-attacked on. And then 2 minutes later, they scored off it. I'm like, probably, in hindsight, but like, they're good areas in third to give fouls away. It feels to me against Arsenal, rather, there are very few good areas to give fouls away. If you're going to do it, high up the pitch as far away as you can, because anything in your half, they'll send the big lads up, they'll have a routine. 9 times out of 10, Declan Rice will get the cross right, and you are going to find yourself in a little bit of bother. Arsenal would quite like this to be similar, I think, to the game against Newcastle, where there are loads of stoppages and loads of free kicks, because they'll back themselves to defend them, Josh, and they'll also back themselves to score off one, and Liverpool needs to be careful. Difference against Newcastle, because as we spoke about on the podcast, it was a different game, it was a mad, intense game. But I think if you ask Arsenal, the more free kicks the better. They'll be like, absolutely, where Liverpool will want the exact opposite. Liverpool will want the ball in play a lot.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the wide free kicks especially is just the line. Where is the defensive line? What's the height saying? If you get that right, it will take care of plenty. But like, if we get up the third Viz, was it maybe?
The high line or the low line?
The low line.
Yeah.
So if we get that one up right, the goal that Marino scores against us, it's virtually impossible to score when your line's that deep, because because Rice is like such a good deliverer of the ball, he can get the whip on it. When Liverpool conceded that goal, it was a relatively high line, and he just kind of curved his delivery around it right onto Marino's head, and we concede. I do wonder if that might be regarded by Liverpool as the way home.
Just go and defend people.
Exactly. Just because then Rice's delivery becomes a bit more of a bit less of an edge, because you can't curve it round, and it places an emphasis then on a ball into the box, which Van Dijk can just challenge. Maybe Alisson can come and claim it. But yeah, I do wonder if that's a possible answer for Liverpool. I think Liverpool would be taking a risk defending with a high line from set pieces against Arsenal because of the level of delivery and because of the invention around it that they tend to use, like runners from deep maybe or something like that. So yeah,
we're going to have to definitely keep an eye on the set pieces, like I say. And you can't...
It's going to be a growing, isn't it? The first one. And
that was my next point, Josh, to round this up, and I'm not sure if this is deeply tactical or analytical, but like, you can be overly scared of the monster that lives under your bed, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, you got to just crack on. It is what it is. Like, you are going to concede set pieces. You can't make them into this ginormous, massive, major event just defend the set piece.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, Liverpool have done this with certain teams or certain grounds. I just think Goodison, for example, like, we talk Goodison up like you're going into a fire pit. You're going, it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be the be all and end all. I think sometimes you can worry yourself too much, you know what I mean? Like Liverpool, and us as fans as well, like say, groans when a corner comes in, or like if Stoke get a long throw, or you've got to kind of treat it as it is. It is just it's another action in a football match that you're going to have to, against a good team, that you're going to have to go and defend well.
No, I think what we need to remember is it's ultimately much harder to score from a set piece than it is to defend one. To defend one, all you have to do is clear it. Just get your head on it. Anywhere will do, sort of thing. If you want to score it, it has to go in the net. So that's much harder, mate. So I agree with you. I think you just applying a common sense approach to it and remembering that, like, realistically, probability-wise, they probably won't score one. As good as they seem to be at doing it, probability suggests that you don't score set pieces very often. Over the course of a season, if you're doing well, you'll score more than 10. But there's 38 games over the course of a campaign. Lots of corners, lots of shots, lots of free kicks. The best is still, like, you know, scoring maybe 15 of them. So, yeah, just tell yourself that, you'll be fine. You've still got Van Dijk in the team, who's the best aerial player in the league, in my opinion. Kanate's a unit. Hopefully he starts playing. But yeah, we've got the makeup to deal with it. It's just, as you say, don't let it get in your head.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, let us know in the comment section. Any bright ideas that Arne Slot might use for how Liverpool can defend the set pieces? For what it's worth, to end, I wouldn't hate if they just dropped the line 5 yards.
Yeah.
That Moreno one, the line was so high, bent around the ball, and it was like a tap-in almost on his own from effectively the penalty spot. And you're just hoping and praying when you do that they haven't timed the run just right with VAR. And you probably get more benefit of the doubt now with VAR, given the automated stuff. I just think it's a big risk. I'd rather say, you know what, if you're going to concede the set piece, Josh, let it be because Gabriel beats Konate or Virgil in the air. Not the delivery takes all your defence out the game, and they've got someone taking a free hit at the goal from the middle. Because so you're right, I wonder if Liverpool do take a little bit of that, because they certainly did it against Newcastle. They went, and it was significantly deeper for a certain individual. It was to deal with Dan Burn. They were worried about the flick on. He can't flick it on from the edge of the box. Maybe Liverpool could do that one. It's definitely in play.
That was a clip from the deep dive. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.